Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into something crucial. We're exploring the current state of living in America, and specifically the huge challenges so many people face just finding basic shelter,
Mm,
whether they're trying to rent or maybe even buy a home.
that's a big topic.
It really is. So our mission here is to unpack a whole set of real-world experiences, real insights. These come directly from a YouTube video transcript, pretty eye-opening stuff called The Harsh Truth About Living in America Right Now. We want to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, maybe some surprising facts too, just to help you get a clear picture of this really critical issue.
Yeah, and it's definitely a topic with a lot of emotional weight. The sources make that clear. These challenges, they're just incredibly widespread. And like you said, our goal isn't just listing problems. It's trying to get at the why.
Yeah.
Understand what people are actually going through on the ground.
Absolutely. And right away, one thing really jumped out at me from the sources, a real aha moment. It's not just about the struggle to buy a house anymore. I mean, that's tough. We know that. But this crisis, it runs deep into just affording an apartment.
hmm
People are having way more trouble qualifying for rentals than they used to. It feels like a fundamental shift.
That's a key point to start with.
Okay, so let's dive into what the sources called the rental gauntlet. Feels like the right term. We have to start with this really striking story from someone in LA. Get this. They're making $200,000 to $250,000 a year.
Ugh.
Great income, working hard. They've got a 798 credit score.
Excellent.
Fantastic score.
Exactly. But they applied for a $4,000 apartment house and got denied. They even wrote a cover letter, chatted with the landlord, mentioned their partner's handy, clearly had, as they put it, more than enough money. You could just hear the heartbreak and confusion, why I keep getting rejected, or I have more than enough money at the rent. Wow, that really shows how wide this net is cast, doesn't it? And it's powerful to contrast that, like you said, with the story of a low-income individual.
Yeah.
This was a 47-year-old single mom, worked part-time her whole life. She racked up some debt during COVID, which happened to so many people, and she got denied for a $1,500 three-bedroom apartment. Low-income housing.
Even though they said credit wouldn't be checked.
Exactly. They specifically told her credit wasn't the issue for that unit, but then she was denied for bad credit. And she described feeling homeless even though she was living with her mom. It just highlights that this isn't just a low-income problem anymore. It cuts across the board.
Yeah, it's systemic. And then you see these requirements.
Yeah.
Like the 3 times income requirement. The source called it insane. Needing to make, what was it, $4,500 a month just for a studio. And someone pointed out, hey, a teacher doesn't even make that much. It's just completely disconnected.
Totally disconnected from wage reality for many. And think about the long-term impact if something goes wrong, like a single eviction. The source was blunt. If you get one, you can never rent anything ever again.
That's terrifying.
It is, and it makes you think, right? With all this talk about job losses, maybe from unregulated AI like the source mentioned, how much worse could the homelessness problem get if even a temporary setback locks you out permanently? It's a really worrying possibility.
Okay, so qualifying is tough. The stakes are high.
Yeah.
But what about the places themselves? Let's talk about the condition of these rental properties. Because the source has painted a pretty grim picture. Sky-high rents for places that are, well, not great. We heard about an $1,100 place called a trap house.
Which basically means severely run down, right?
Exact. It dilapidated. It had ratchet floors, like really worn, uneven, no washer-dryer hookup, basic stuff. Or that LA apartment, $2,495 a month. But it didn't have an oven or refrigerator.
No oven, wow.
Yeah, and tiny bathrooms, bars on the front door for nearly $2,500.
And it's amazing how often the sources said apartments just aren't rent ready. People are shelling out these astronomical amounts of rent, but the places haven't even gotten a fresh coat of paint or basic touch-ups, not even properly cleaned up. It feels like a real lack of respect for tenants given the cost.
So facing all this,
Yeah.
what are people doing? How are they coping? The sources mentioned folks downsizing, not getting as big an apartment. And there was that one really vivid story. Someone deciding, I don't need a living room.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
They were going to give their bedroom to their daughter and set up their own king-size bed right in the living room, use a projector, ditch the TV setup. Is that just about saving cash, do you think? Or is there something else going on there?
That's a great question. And the sources suggest it's definitely more than just money for some people. This kind of radical downsizing, it was often framed as pushing back against burnout. Burnout from the 9-to-5 jobs that drained us, from parenting without pause, from maintaining a house that never gives back.
A house that never gave back. That's interesting phrasing.
Isn't it? The person described it as choosing peace, more presence, more us. It's like they're actively rejecting that whole bigger is better idea that's so common, especially in the U.S. trading space, for maybe sanity, a different kind of wealth.
Okay, so renting is a minefield. What about buying? The American dream, right?
Right.
Well, the sources suggest that dream is feeling increasingly out of reach, too. Homes are just unaffordable for so many. Yeah. The high interest rates, obviously, plus strict qualifications, maybe inconsistent work histories that lenders don't like.
And there's a really critical issue that came up, highlighted by a lender with like 10 years experience. They pointed out this surge in people getting pre-approved by lenders, but not by actual mortgage advisors.
What's the difference there? Why does that matter?
Well, this lender said they usually get maybe 1 to 2 emails every couple of weeks saying, help me, my lender messed up. But recently, they got 23 of these requests in just the last 2 weeks.
23. Wow.
Yeah, a huge jump. It's a massive red flag. It suggests some lenders might be pushing people towards signing contracts, saying they're pre-approved when maybe the underwriting isn't really solid yet, and the buyers can end up losing their earnest money, their deposit. It's heartbreaking.
Oh, man. That's terrible. And even if you do get approved, the actual cost is just staggering. Take that couple in California buying the 4-bedroom place, listed at $795,000. They offered $880,000 and got it.
80 in California.
Right, and their monthly payment, over $5,100. Just the mortgage, taxes, insurance. And here's the kicker. They specifically said parents gave us money to put as a down payment. Without that help, likely wouldn't have happened.
That parental help seems crucial for many now.
It does. Then there was the single registered nurse in Florida. Great situation on paper. 8 on 8 credit score, 0 debt. But she got quoted a 6.5% mortgage rate. And she realized one mortgage payment would be more than one of my paychecks. She just said it felt very depressing, I can imagine.
Absolutely depressing. And it makes you wonder, like, how did prices get this crazy? There was that personal story in the sources that really drove this home. Someone bought a house back in 2021 for $125,000. Got a great rate, 3.025%.
Wow, lucky them.
Right, paying only $700 a month. Amazing. But then when they looked for another house more recently, they said they struggle to find houses that are less than $300,000. Even if the places are, again, basically trap houses, the market just exploded.
And that same person's story got even wilder, didn't it? They sold their first house, the remodeled one, for $210,000. Okay, nice profit. Then they bought a new one for $360,000. And now, just 2 years later, Zillow says it's worth nearly $420,000.
An extra $60,000 in 2 years.
Yeah, a literal first-hand $60,000 increase.
Yeah, but they were frustrated, saying it's barely worth the $360,000 they paid, and their parents, dad's a contractor, mom works with building materials. They both said, look, material costs haven't gone up that much. It doesn't justify these prices. Which brings us to the bigger picture, right? These underlying economic pressures fueling everything. The sources talked about people being in survival mode for 3 or more years, just trying to tread water, and couples realizing they cannot survive on one income anymore. That's a huge shift from, say, a generation ago.
Huge shift. And we heard about this concept, the paper ceiling. It was this example of someone with 15 years of experience, really qualified, had multiple licenses, property casualty, Series 763, but couldn't get entry-level jobs because apparently companies wanted younger, moldable people.
Right. And couldn't move up either.
Couldn't move up because they didn't have a specific degree. So stuck, forced to go back to school for 2 years, trapped by the paperwork, essentially.
That's incredibly frustrating. And it forces people into different ways of coping, doesn't it? Which leads back to adaptations, like combining resources. The sources really highlighted this trend of multi-generational living becoming more necessary, like that couple who had to move back in with my parents.
Yeah, that was powerful.
They admitted they had to swallow our pride. And they realized, very starkly, if we didn't have my parents, we would have no one and nothing. Which, as the source noted, really challenges some cultural norms, particularly in white communities where living independently has often been the expectation.
It does. And you see the practical impact, too, like on fixed incomes. Someone mentioned realizing how impactful that is once their dad is retired. Every single dollar matters when income stops growing.
Absolutely. And it's not just housing or jobs. Other costs are squeezing people. The sources mentioned gouging by our electric company. That sounds intense. One person said their electric has been turned off 3 times since December, even though they paid $1,700 in the last 5 months.
Turned off 3 times, despite paying that much.
Yeah, and they detailed how 2 households ended up paying $3,000 over 6 months for infrastructure that's already there.
Yeah.
Just another burden piled on top of everything else.
It really feeds into that theme that came up. Everything is predatory towards the people who need help the most.
Wow, that example of the $70 late fee on a phone bill was just perfect. As the person said, if I had the money, don't you think I would have paid it?
Exactly. It's punishing poverty.
Right, it just digs the hole deeper.
So, okay, pulling back, looking at everything we've heard from these sources, the core message seems pretty clear. It is just very expensive to have shelter right now in America. And if you, listening, happen to be in a good living situation, your rent or mortgage feels manageable, the sources suggest you should count yourself very fortunate. You're genuinely ahead of a lot of people.
That's a sobering thought. And the sources offer some direct advice based on these tough experiences.
Yeah.
For you, the listener, they basically say, do not get something above your means. Don't stretch yourself thin. Try to get something that is going to give you some breathing room. Stability over square footage, maybe? That seems to be the message. And it leads to a pretty clear call to action, too, which is think about the future and start making some plans and provisions now. Because, as they point out, situations can change for you as well at any minute. It's unpredictable. So the advice is put some money aside if you're able to. Build that cushion. Seems more critical than ever.
Absolutely. And one last really practical takeaway, especially if you're trying to buy a home, is to trust your gut. Recognize those red flags with lenders or agents. If you feel uneasy about anything, the source specifically says walk away.
Don't get pressured. Your financial health is paramount.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
wow, it's clear there are just immense challenges. People are facing incredible hurdles just to get a roof over their heads in America today.
Yeah.
You really hear the frustration in these sources, but also a lot of resilience. People are adapting.
Yeah, that's what's striking. It's not just about the financial struggle, though that's huge. It's also about this fundamental rethinking of what home even means and how people are forced to adapt, sometimes in really surprising, unconventional ways, just to navigate this unforgiving landscape. Multi-gen living, tiny living.
Right. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought drawn straight from these experiences. If people with good incomes, perfect credit, are struggling just to rent, and buying a home is becoming impossible, even with family help for many, how long can our traditional ideas about living independently, about everyone owning a home, how long can those really hold up for most people? And what comes next? What new ways of living, what new societal structures might emerge because of all this pressure?
That's the big question, isn't it? Something for you, the listener, to really reflect on. Think about your own situation, sure, but also the wider implications of these trends, because understanding these shifts, it's not just about the economy, it's about seeing the deep social changes happening all around us.